She had 3 vaccines today, so she was not happy. One was for polio. The other 2, I don't know what it was. They warned me a little bit.
You might not be happy tonight.
I said one thing, when I think assistant, he believes in vaccinations, but he'll never double them. Because he gets a reaction. Okay, I have allergies myself, and so my kids have allergies, their allergies started after that. But he just don't, he never gets double. He make it come back 10 times, which is fine, but he never combine, he never more than 7. She's not good. No,
You're giving her like Tylenol.
Yeah, I'm so glad I asked my husband on his way home to pick up Tylenol. I was like, oh, this seems better to have it.
Yeah.
I told you, the name of the doctor to give it to her.
Yeah. But she was
not happy anyway. Funny. Maybe that's a trick to it. Wait, you have 2 of them, right?
no, yeah.
And then, okay. So you can have a lack of sleep tonight, hopefully catch up sometime tomorrow, hopefully.
What do you want to sleep in? Good night.
Not supposed to. Okay, Kapitel Ches. So, once again we have Dovid HaMelech starting a kapitel with a little bit of an obscure pasuk. So it says, Laminatseach al Hagitis Mizmar LeDavid. Laminatseach, which we always translate as it's addressed to a conductor of music. Al Hagitis. Question is, what does Al Hagitis mean? So again, Rashi brings down in his first pshat that Gitis is a reference to some sort of musical instrument. So Rashi always pays allegiance to that pshat. He says, Kli Zemer, it's a musical instrument, Shaba Migas, that came from the place called Gas. And Sham B'tzuyim Umanim La'asoisai, that's where the craftsmen that would make this type of musical instrument lived. Rashi seems never to be satisfied, like we've seen before, with that pshat, because again, why do we need to know the particular musical instrument it was played on? Therefore, Rashi brings down, again, the Medrash, and he brings down a Medrash that says, V'Rabbeinu Darshuhu al Edom. The Chazal say that this is a reference to Edom, the nation of Edom, Sha'asida lidarech kegas, which will be crushed like grapes in a wine press or olives in an olive press. Like it says, Purei darachti levadi. But Rashi is troubled by that as well, because he says, Ach inyan hamizmar eina machiach. The topic covered by the kapitel does not seem to lend credence to that pshat. But if we take a look in the Radak has another pshat. The Radak says, V'yesh oimrim, there are those that say, Ki nisanoi livnei oived edom hagiti. That when Dovid HaMelech composed this kapitel, he gave it, so to speak. I assume that means that he, it's like somebody composes a song and dedicates it, right? Dedicates it to somebody. So it seems that Dovid HaMelech dedicated this kapitel to Oved Edom Hagiti. Who was Oved Edom Hagiti? Oved Edom Hagiti was a Levi who lived in Gas, and in his home, it was in his home that Dovid HaMelech brought the Aron HaKodesh. Dovid HaMelech needed a place for the Aron HaKodesh. The Aron HaKodesh had been captured by the Plishtim, and that was when the Mishkan was destroyed, the end of Eli's Kahuna Gedolah. And after that, we needed a place to put the Aron HaKodesh, and he brought it. He was going to bring it to Yerushalayim. He was going to make a place for it in Ir David. And instead, somebody died when they were bringing it, and he ended up diverting the Aron HaKodesh to the house of Oved Edom Hagiti. And I think that fact, we have to ask ourselves, why would this kapitel be dedicated to Oved Edom? And I think when we're going to see now the topic and the content of the kapitel, I think it makes a lot of sense that it would be dedicated to him. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shakal v'dvar.
If there's some, let's say, there are all these details of the Kabbalah, exactly how it has to be done this way, how it has to be done that way, why couldn't it be that they were being very specific that for this Mizmar, this is the tune used and this is instrument used. Like, why couldn't it be like that?
Well, for one thing, we don't find halachas.
Oh,
Because we don't find anywhere in Shas
yeah.
halachas that describe
Okay.
how the shira was done or anything. So, and why would it have to be spelled out, clearly in a pasuk? Why would you give a whole pasuk in Tanakh for it? So Dovid HaMelech says, Hashem Adonenu, Hashem our master, Ma adir shimcha b'chala aretz. How mighty is your name in the entire world, Asher tana haidecha al hashamayim, that you have placed your haid, you have placed your majesty, al hashamayim, above the heavens. This is one of those psukim that you could read 100 times, and it's just a beautifully poetic pasuk. It sounds very nice, but what does it really mean? So Hashem Adonenu, Hashem our master, Ma'adir Shimcha, how mighty is your name. Now first of all, what does that mean? What is the reference to Hashem's name? Now, it doesn't say Hashem Adonenu, Ma'adir Ata, how mighty are you? It says, how mighty is your name? So the Mefarshim say that you have to understand, we cannot conceptualize what the Ribbono Shel Olam is. We don't even know what that question means. We don't have a frame of reference to describe the Ribbono Shel Olam. Right? He's not physical. Ein lo guf, ve'ein lo demus haguf. He's not corporal. He's l'mayla min azman. Time is a creation of the Ribbono Shel Olam. He's not subject to time. So we, as physical mortal beings, we do not have a frame of reference of how we could possibly describe the Ribbono Shel Olam. So the only thing that we can do is, we could say, Ma'adir Shimcha, how mighty is your name? Well, what's a name? A name is the thing that we use. It's the identifier that we use to identify something, and we give it a name based on our perception, based on what we could possibly perceive. So we say, Ma'adir Shimcha, what we know about you from your name, Ma'adir. That's the only way we could say, we can't praise the Ribbono Shel Olam directly because we have no concept even of what the Ribbono Shel Olam is. But we could say, Ma'adir Shimcha, your name conveys to us certain things that we know. What's the Ribbono Shel Olam's name? So we had in Parsha Shemais, what Moshe Rabbeinu said, when they ask me, what's your name, what should I say? Right? So what does the Ribbono Shel Olam say over there in Parsha Shemais? Right? The Ribbono Shel Olam uses the name Havaya, Haya, Hayve, V'yeh. What we know about the Ribbono Shel Olam is that the Ribbono Shel Olam is Haya, the Ribbono Shel Olam is everything that was, Hayve, everything that is, V'yeh, everything that will be. The Ribbono Shel Olam encompasses everything, which is why I always say that when we daven to the Ribbono Shel Olam, it's something that we have to remember. When we come to the Ribbono Shel Olam, we have a tzara, chas v'shalom, whatever it is, something that we need. It doesn't have to be a tzara. We're mispal to the Ribbono Shel Olam for anything. We're mispal to the Ribbono Shel Olam for parnasa. We're mispal to the Ribbono Shel Olam for gesund, for health. We have to realize, who are we davening to? We're davening to the Ribbono Shel Olam who is Haya, Hayve, V'yeh. Now think about that for a minute. That means we're asking the Ribbono Shel Olam for something. The Ribbono Shel Olam is Haya. The Ribbono Shel Olam knows, caused, brought about everything that ever happened from Bria Shamayim V'aretz, right? From the first second of Bria Ha'olam, the Ribbono Shel Olam knows, caused, brought about everything that has happened and hasn't forgotten anything, right? So the Ribbono Shel Olam knows me from the day I'm born. The Ribbono Shel Olam knows my parents. The Ribbono Shel Olam knows my grandparents. The Ribbono Shel Olam knows where I came from. The Ribbono Shel Olam knows where I'm going. The Ribbono Shel Olam knows what I did yesterday, 2 days ago, 3 days ago. The Ribbono Shel Olam knows everything that I think. The Ribbono Shel Olam understands my situation down to the nittiest, grittiest detail, right? That's who I'm coming to be mispal to. The Rebbe Shalom was also Hoive. The Rebbe Shalom is everything that's happening now. He's also Yeh. So the Rebbe Shalom knows, he knows my future. He knows everything that I am thoroughly, intimately, completely. And that's who I'm being mispal to. Hashem Adinenu Mo Adir Shimcha. Just what's involved in your name. It's like I always say, you say Kriya Shema. Shema Yisrael, Hashem. Hashem is Haya Hoive V'yeh. That's what, when we say Hashem, what are we saying? We have to have that picture in our mind. When we say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu. Hashem is our God. What does that mean, Hashem? Who is Hashem? What is Hashem? Hashem is Adon HaKol, the master of everything, but not only the master of everything. The Haya Hoive V'yeh. That's Elokeinu, is our God. That's who the Hashem, that's my God is. That's the might and the majesty of who we're addressing. And what we're saying is Elokeinu, that I have a relationship with. So we have to have that in mind. And then Hashem, that Haya Hoive V'yeh, is also Echad, the soul and only source of everything and of all. So what a statement that is. But that's only if you pay attention to it. And that's every time we make a bracha, every time we make a shahakal on a glass of water. That's what that Elokeinu, Hashem, Baruch Atah Hashem, right? Elokeinu Melech HaOlam Shakol Ni B'Dvari. That's what the Hashem is. So Ma'adir Shimcha B'chal Haaretz, in the whole world. Asher Tunahoidcha Al Hashamayim, who places his majesty on the heavens. There is a malbum over here that is just beyond. It's such a beautiful malbum that it would be worth it. It would be worth it to say shir for several weeks, just on this malbum. What the malbum does over here is, the malbum says, we find a major conflict, a major ideological conflict between us, between From Yidden, and between, he refers to the philosophers, but he doesn't only mean philosophers. He means Western thought, scientists, scientific thought, a major ideological conflict. He says, in the eyes of the Torah HaKadoshah, in the eyes of a From Yid, man is the culmination of the Bria, of creation. Hashem created everything during Sheshis Yemei Bereshis, and he created man last. Why did he create man last? So like Rashi tells us, first you create the whole environment and the whole atmosphere that you need for the main occupant, then you bring the occupant in. So the simple example I like to give is somebody who decides that he wants a fish tank in his house. What does he do? Does he go to the fish store and buy a fish, and then after he buys a fish, bring it home in a bag and say, oh, wait a second, now I have a fish in a bag. What am I going to do with it? Now go and buy a tank and get gravel and get a filter and get a heater and get a light and get water? No. First he buys the tank and the gravel and the cute little plants and the filter and the heater, and he sets it all up. And after he sets it all up, he goes back to the store and he says, okay, now I have a running fish tank. I want to put fish in it. So you buy the fish last. You don't buy the fish first. So the Rebbe Shalom created the fish tank. First he made the whole world and everything that's in it. And only then did he create man and put man into the world. So man is the purpose and the culmination of the Bria. And which man? Which man? The man who's Shemit Torah mitzvahs. The From Yid who lives a Torah life to be Marbek Kvod Shamayim, to be Oved Hashem and increase the honor of heaven, that's the man that everything has been created for. That's the way we look at it through the eyes of the Torah. How does a scientist look at it? A scientist looks at it and says quite the opposite. A scientist looks at it and says, man? Man? What's man? Man is so completely, entirely insignificant in the scope of creation. You've got, look, first of all, how arrogant is man that man just looks at Earth. Earth is a speck in the cosmos, right? It's just a speck. It's a speck, forget in the cosmos. It's one planet in our solar system. The solar system is a speck in the Milky Way. The Milky Way is a speck. There's one galaxy. There's constellations and there's a universe. So we're a speck of a speck of a speck of a speck. And on this tiny speck of Earth, the man is a speck. And we are so arrogant that we come and we make a whole, taram, that we're like everything. What are you? You're nothing. So the science and the philosophers say that we're mamish klum, we're nothing. We're nothing. And we look at it that we're everything. So the Malbim over here goes about using this kapitel in Tehillim to tear that mindset to shreds. So he says, Hashem Adonenu, Hashem our master, Ma'adir Shimcha b'chol ha'aretz. Where do you see the grandeur of the Ribbono Shel Olam? Bashamayim or ba'aretz? So he says, the scientists turn around and they say, what? You're focusing on Earth? Earth is a little nothing. Look at everything else that's going on up there. Says the Malbim. He says, if somebody goes ahead, a genius craftsman goes ahead and makes a new type of machine, and believe it or not, the Malbim uses the word machine. That's the word that the Malbim uses. Mem Aleph Shin Yud Nun, machine. I'm not sure. I wanted to look before I said shit tonight, but I didn't have a chance to pull it out and take a look. I don't think so. But I wanted to take out, I have this, Midar Ladar. I wanted to check. If anybody has a smartphone, they can just Google it, and it'll say it right away.
But I thought we had this smartphone, yeah, I thought we had this phone.
If you have the Sefer. If not, you just take out a smartphone. You Google Malbim, Malbim, and it'll tell you right away. But I'm not sure. But he actually uses the word machine.
None of us are admitting this. Even though I know all of it.
Yeah, just Google it. Google Malbim. It might the spell might correct you, but yeah. But so he says somebody goes ahead and makes a new machine. How do you judge the greatness and the value of that machine? Do you do it by size? Do you say, wow, it's huge, it must be a great machine? He says, no, quite the opposite. Which one is a greater feat of engineering? The iPhone or the computer from 1960 that took up 3 rooms?
It's not really coming up the way you wanted.
It's not. They don't have. I'm surprised that even Wikipedia doesn't have that. Nobody put it in. Let me see. Malbim.
Did I spell it wrong?
Malbim.
I think I said
Malbim.
I might have spelled it wrong.
Let's see. Meir Leibush Ben Yechiel Michel Wisser, better known as the Malbim. Okay, born March 7th, 1809, died September 18th, 1879. Okay, so early 1800s.
Okay.
Early 1800s. Lived through the Civil War. Not here though. So we look at the silicon computer chip, right? Tiny. We can't. The example that he likes to use is a watch. He says you have a tiny watch. He says that in his days somebody made a watch that was the size of. Did he say a bean? No, I'm going to find it right now. He says, and in that little tiny thing, You've got wheels and gears and springs and everything else. It's a tremendous feat of engineering. It's a bigger feat of engineering than something big that somebody made. He says, you look at the Shemayim. The Shemayim is amazing. You've got sun and stars and planets and constellations and koichavim and everything else. He says, that's not where you see the grandeur of the Rebbeinu Shalom, on empty planets and empty and stars that have empty planets orbiting them. He says, even gravity. He says, what holds it all together? What holds it all together is gravity. He says, but gravity is one rule. Gravity is one simple rule. You have mass. Mass creates a gravitic pull. Depending on the size of the mass, you have more gravitic pull, less gravitic pull. And you have all of these different bodies in the Shemayim. You have different sized stars and different sized planets and everything else. And everything sticks together because the Rebbeinu Shalom made one rule called gravity. He says, that's not where you see Hashem's grandeur. You want to see Hashem's grandeur is Ba'aretz. Here, on this world, he says one blade of grass has more to it than the constellations do. He says one blade of grass has how many scientific rules that make the nourishment come from the ground up through the root system up into the blade, and then it gets turned into the nutrition that the grass needs, and then the photosynthesis from the sun goes ahead and activates the proteins and everything else that makes the grass grow. And then he says one blade of grass has more chachma of the Rebbeinu Shalom than all the constellations. He says, and man, the feat of engineering that is man, and then the hashgacha pratis of man, how the Rebbeinu Shalom controls every detail of man's life. So he says, Dovid HaMelech said, Hashem Adonenu ma'adir shimcha b'chol haaretz. If you want to see the grandeur of the Rebbeinu Shalom, if you want to remove yourself from the falseness of the world, Stephen Hawking saw everything that he saw in the constellations. The greatest astronomer of the age. He was a kafir. Right, his last book was, the last book that he wrote before he died, There Is No God. That was the last book that he wrote. There is no God. Matter of fact, right before the Chagah, I saw a Goyish journalist who happens to be a from a Christian, wrote an opinion piece. I forgot which paper it was in. He wrote a piece, and he said he wishes he could be there to see Stephen Hawking's great surprise. When he would get upstairs, he's not a Jew, he's a Christian, but he says, his belief, he says Stephen Hawking is going to arrive upstairs and he's going to find out, uh-oh, I was wrong. You know, he says, so everything that he saw, and he still turned around and denied that there's a God. Why? So first of all, he was looking in the wrong place. Second of all, Lamnatseach al Hagitis. Who did Dovid HaMelech dedicate this kapitel to? Oived Edom Hagiti, where the Aron HaKodesh was. You don't know any of this if you don't have Torah first. Then no matter what you see, you're not going to see the Rebbeinu Shalom. Stephen Hawking had a better appreciation of the intricacies of creation than most simple from a Yidden do. He knew more about the wonders of creation, and he still was able to deny that there was a God. He didn't have a Torah. You see, if you don't have a Torah, if you live without the Torah HaKadoshah, then what does it mean to accept that there's a God? It's a burden. It means that I am not the final say. It means that I have to give up on koichi va'otzim yodi. It means that I can't say, I'm in charge. I do. I accomplish. You know, one of the hardest things about Emunah and B'tachon sometimes is the ability to realize that no matter how much effort I put into something, no matter how much I work on something. I'll give you an example. A doctor, right? A doctor sweats through pre-med, and then he sweats through medical school, and then he sweats through residency, right? And he puts in hours and hours and hours, and he works his head off. And then boards, and then specialization, and it becomes a neurosurgeon, right? Years of hard work and training. And then finally, he becomes a junior neurosurgeon. And then finally, he gets more experience. And now he keeps on working. He never doesn't rest on his laurels. He keeps on working. Eventually, he becomes a senior neurosurgeon. Maybe eventually he becomes the sought-after neurosurgeon. And then one day they call him up and they say, we have a surgery that only you can do. I happen to know a fellow, not a neurosurgeon. I know an ocular surgeon, an eye surgeon, who he's the only doctor in the world. He's a Yid. He's the only doctor in the world that does a particular surgery that saves the eyesight of children, of babies. They bring him babies from all over the world. His name is Dr. Abramson. They bring him babies from all over the world. They bring him from communist China, they bring him babies. And he's the only one that does this surgery. He's working now on training somebody else in this surgery. For such a person, could you imagine such a person walking out of surgery, getting a big thank you from the parents of the baby whose vision he just saved, and turning around and saying, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. Thank God. Yeah, I did it. I did it, and I appreciate the thank you. Appreciate the thank you. You're welcome. Happy I was able to do it. You know, but God is the one that gave me the skill. God is the one that guided my hands. God is the one ultimately who made it a success or a failure. You know what it takes to say that? After spending decades of hard work? That's not easy. Not easy. And the more you know, and the more you learn, not Torah, in the secular world, the more science you know, and the harder you work at something, it becomes harder to go ahead and walk away and say, but at the end of the day, I'm nothing. At the end of the day, there's a Rebbeinu Shalom that controls everything. The trick is that you have to have a Torah. Because you see, it's the same argument that we always make. The secular world turns around and looks at, let's say, Orthodox Jewry. And one of the things that they'll say about us is that we're very sexist. We're very chauvinistic. We mistreat our women. I mean, we want to keep our women, I mean, if they would only know that we have such a saying called Kfud Bas Melech Pnima, you know, that the honor of a woman is inside. What, you want to keep her locked away in the house or the kitchen? I mean, like, what? You know, it's like we hold them back, and they can't be rabbis, and they can't be this, and they can't be that. I don't even have to begin to make the argument. Give me a room, and give me their 10 most honored women, and give me 10 simple from Eishes Chayils, housewives, and you'll see that ours have 1,000 times the dignity that they do. Just look at the picture. You don't need anything else. You don't have to get into any long conversations. Who has more dignity? Who walks around in a more dignified fashion? Who's treated with more dignity? Who acts with more dignity? And you're going to make a case. You're going to say that somehow we're primitive and we put down women. It's absurd. It's the height of absurdity. So all of their refusal to accept a God, all of their refusal to accept that there's a God that created the world and there's a God that created everything, and they think that by doing that, they're maintaining their own, somehow their own stature. Whereas if there's a God, then I'm a nobody. If there's no God, then I'm a somebody. If there's no God, you're the biggest nobody. If you're a God, if there's no God, then it's like these philosophers that the Malbim are talking about are saying. If there's no God, so what are you? You're a mistake. You're an accident. You know, you're such a nothing. You're an accident that happened in a freak accident, and you tackle one minute, beyond microscopic speck in the cosmos, and who are you to even hold up your head? Is it any wonder then? You know, I heard on the radio today a news story, and they say like this: in a zoo, I forgot where it was, in some zoo, a child accidentally got into the rhino enclosure. The rhino was not harmed, and the rhino was not euthanized. I'm waiting to hear what happened to the kid.
She's in the hospital.
Oh, I didn't hear what happened to the kid.
My God.
I heard about the
She's in the
rhino.
hospital, the mother's in the hospital.
Oh, I heard about the rhino. I didn't hear about the kid. So, where I heard it, they didn't talk about the kid. They talked about the rhino. So is it any wonder that they give more credence to the rhino? Is it any wonder that we have people nowadays who are out there who would suggest the notion that if you're in a dangerous situation and you have a choice between saving a dog and saving a person, you should give at least serious thought to saving the dog before the person?
They had a big crime. I think there was also a kid that fell in with, I don't know, whatever animal it was.
Well, that was
And the animal had to get euthanized.
right, and everybody was upset about it.
They're very upset that the
Right.
animal had to get
So it's the so everything they're denying a God for the sake of maintaining their stature, gives them the smallest stature that there is. By us, who say that there's a God who created us, so then man is the height of creation. You look through your telescopes and you see galaxies and constellations and all. That was all made for me. The furthest star that you could see, thousands of light years away, where you can't even conceptualize that star has anything to do with what's going on this earth. That star was created for me. That's how chashuv I am. That star was created for me. And newsflash, that star has an effect on this world. We don't understand it. Can't even begin to know it. But that star somehow has an effect on this world. Otherwise, the Rebbe wouldn't have created it. Says the Malbim, Ma'adir Shimcha B'chal Ha'aretz. Your grandeur is seen on this world. Asher T'nahidecha Al Hashamayim. You placed your majesty in the heavens. All of the majesty that there is in the heavens is only a reflection of what's here. It's all dependent. All that's out there that you would see if you looked at a telescope, it's all just for here. And it's all dependent on what's here. A Yid goes ahead and does a mitzvah. A Yid goes ahead and puts on tefillin. A Yid goes ahead and does a chesed. A Yid goes ahead and tzins licht on Shabbos. You're giving not just justification for the existence of everything that's out there, but you're giving kiyum. You're providing reason for the entire universe. You go ahead and you say Lashon Hara. You go ahead and you do an Aveira of any kind. You're doing damage to the entire universe. The whole universe was only here for the Shemit Torah mitzvahs, so that you should do the Rebbeinu Shalom's Ratzon. You do something that's keneged the Rebbeinu Shalom's Ratzon, you're affecting the entire fabric of the entire creation. But you only see this. See, if you're from a Yid, I missed that point, I didn't make it. They don't have a Torah. And that's the main reason why they're stuck in this belief system, why they're driven, no matter what, to deny God. Like I say, a lot of the scientists especially, they see more reason to argue that there is a God than we do. I like to say sometimes that the Museum of Natural History in Manhattan is the citadel of Kfira, and it's the citadel of the proof that there's a Bari Olam. You go in there, and you see all sorts of exhibits on the wonders of the natural world. I always give one example. Say, we know that heat rises and cold sinks. And yet, the oceans, rivers, and lakes of the world freeze at the top and not at the bottom. That doesn't make any sense. If cold sinks, then the coldest water should constantly sink to the bottom. And eventually, when you have 32-degree water, it should sink to the bottom and it should freeze. And the ice should build up from the bottom. The top should be melted. The bottom should be frozen. Now, you see, if that would happen, there would be a small problem. And that is that life on Earth would cease to exist. Because if the bottoms of the oceans would freeze, then all the life that exists down at the bottom, the microscopic life form, and then the somewhat larger life, the plankton and everything else, would die out. If the oceans die, the Earth is doomed. So the Rebbeinu Shalom made a cute trick. The trick that the Rebbeinu Shalom made is that for some crazy reason, 32-degree water is the lightest water. So as water reaches the freezing point, it goes straight to the top. Now, they have a whole exhibit on this in the Museum of Natural History. They dedicated a half of a room just to explaining this fact. Half of a room in the Museum of Natural History. But there's no God. It's a mistake. It's a fluke. Yeah. Thank God there's a fluke. Without that fluke, no world. Right? A good thing is a fluke. And that's one thing. That's one thing. One itty-bitty, tiny thing. The human body. If the wonders of what goes on in our body go ahead, and if I don't know if anybody had to study in college, had to study molecular biology. Molecular biology, I remember I was helping somebody with molecular biology, and it's like your head starts to spin. I mean, the machinery of a cell, how a cell absorbs nutrition. You probably had to do some of this, right? The machinery, I forgot what the respiratory...
The whole Krebs cycle.
What?
Forget that, I had the whole Krebs cycle.
The Krebs cycle. The Krebs cycle is beyond. It's beyond. You know, it's 1,000 times more complicated than the fact that that the lakes freeze at the top and not the bottom.
We had a bio teacher that was Jewish, and a group of us happened to be in his office asking questions, and one of them, and we're all from, one of the Bachram asked him, I said, how do you not believe in God? And he said, science answers everything.
Science answers everything. Right, science answers everything.
You know, then you cannot fault them because they do not have a Torah.
No.
So that's what okay, I'm saying the way
No, I still fault them.
Yeah.
I still fault them.
I
I still fault them because you see, when I say that the reason they're trapped in this is because they don't have a Torah, it's because they don't have a Torah, and because they don't have a Torah, they think that going ahead and accepting a God just puts them down. And they don't want to be put down, but that's not an excuse. In other words, it's their gaiva. It's their gaiva. It's their
It would be any God.
any God.
Yeah.
But they can't bring themselves to accept a deity, because once you accept that, what does that mean? That means that I am meshubit to something. It means I'm beholden to some kind of higher cause, higher entity.
This is unconscious. Are they aware of this?
I think the smart ones are, yeah. I think the plain Joe walking in the street, who is getting up and getting on the train and going to work, coming home and paying the bills and going to sleep, and I don't think he's conscious of it. But it's no excuse either, because like the Ramosha writes in his Sefer, he says God gave you an intellect and you have an obligation to use it. You can't walk around like a blind man. You walk around, you see a tree.
Yeah, but
Where'd the tree come from?
You gotta look at the other way, it's Bali Tuba, right? So what made us come to I mean, I did it in second grade, but what made us come to civilization? Because we're looking for truth.
Don't we have like a searching neshama, the pita
Well,
keeping
because-
us, and No,
This was
you're
a this was a
more
Jewish
than-
this
than
was a
90.
Jewish no this was a Jewish science teacher.
Right,
Most of
right,
the
I
science
know.
department in Brooklyn College was Jewish,
I know.
and the one who was the most, there was a Native American. He was Native American mixed with Korean or something. He was the one that was the most religious, and he said, "I'm supposed to teach you about evolution, and I don't believe in it."
I read
Things
today.
didn't just come out.
Did you hear about this nurse
And
in
he's-
Cleveland?
And he's a guy.
You hear about this nurse in Cleveland?
Well, which one?
Cleveland Clinic fired
Oh,
a
yeah,
nurse.
Yeah,
Fired a nurse. They found on her social media page, "I'm going to give Jews the wrong medication."
yeah. I'm gonna kill the Jews.
Did you see? Did you see where she graduated? Did you see that?
No, I don't know where.
Torah.
Oh, really?
Torah.
That I didn't see.
A graduate of Torah. I fell off my chair when I read it.
And what was she? What is her?
No, she's a doctor. So she said.
No, but I mean, what nationality? What?
I don't know.
Religion?
I saw a picture of her. She didn't strike
Indian
me.
or not-
Oh.
The name was not an American.
Right.
name.
Oh, it wasn't an American name?
It's
I didn't see the
It's
name.
like 27, right?
I don't know. I don't know. She looked young.
It wasn't
I
an
don't know.
American name.
I thought
But-
she was a doctor.
No, she was a doctor.
Oh, doctor.
It was a
I thought-
doctor.
So this is the
Yeah, yeah.
Good.
I want to get to the contrast. If you have a Torah, if you come to this analysis, but you have a Torah, then you understand that the Rebbeinu Shalom, that Adarabah, my accepting of the Rebbeinu Shalom means that I am the focal point of all creation. It means that you understand that everything that the Rebbeinu Shalom made for me to be Mekayim Kol HaTorah Kula. Now you see the chashivas of a person. Now you see the tremendous value of what a person is. That's what you have to see now. When you read a scientific article, and you take a look and you find that they discovered another this, they discovered another that. It's all for what? All so that I should be here and I should be Oved Hashem. So accepting the Rebbeinu Shalom is not a burden. It's like I cry over it. The youth nowadays, they shouldn't feel that the Torah HaKadosh is a burden, that it's negativity, it's don't do this, don't do that. No, you know what the Torah HaKadosh is? The Torah HaKadosh is, you know who you are? You 18-year-old. You think for a minute that you're the same as the non-Jewish 18-year-old that's involved in whatever he's involved with, in whatever high school he's in, living the life that he's living. You think all you are is that? You're 25 million times that. The Rebbeinu Shalom went ahead and created constellations 100,000 light years away for you, because you have a higher purpose. Yeah, I remember I had to somehow reach a kid who came from a family, but a kid who was slowly but surely wandering away. And this was in the days when Harry Potter was all the rage, you know. So he made some kind of reference to Harry Potter. So I said, Harry Potter. Not just a regular boy. He's a wizard, right? He can do magic. And not just any old wizard. He was the greatest of the wizards. I said, who are you? Who are you? You are a Mamleches Kayhana V'Gad Kadosh. You have an ability to talk to the Rebbeinu Shalom 3 times a day. You have an audience with the Rebbeinu Shalom 3 times a day. Somebody thinks he's chashiv, he's in an audience with the president? Fair! The audience with the president. That I have an audience with the one who pulls the president's puppet strings. What do I need an audience with the president? I don't need an audience with the president. What's that worth? Cigar Nishvert. So that's how hush you want to go ahead and you want to give that away to lead a life that's just being led by who knows how many thousands of kids on the street who accomplish nothing and go nowhere? You're ready to give this up for that? What are you, crazy? You don't realize what you're giving up. But the problem is that he thinks what he's giving up is, he thinks he's running away from, I can't do this and I can't do that. You don't want to let me do this and you don't want to let me do that. And you want to restrict me here and you want to restrict me there. So he's trying to run away from that. What you have to show him is no, don't be a fool. It's not a question of restrictions. Adarabba, you're giving up a life of such value. You're giving up a life of such potential and such value. And you're giving it up for what? For nothing. If you tell me that there is something, what are you going to show me? There's nothing. Well, walking around in the street with torn jeans? I mean, that's what you're giving it up for? So there's nothing there. And we'll go through more of the kapitel, but that's, I think, the beginning of what we have to see from this beautiful kapitel. When you start to realize this, you start to realize what's here, and you realize how chashuv we are, and what we have, the preciousness of what we have, is what we have to really take to heart and pay attention to. Okay.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Regards to Zalman.
Yes.
Tell him I miss him.
He misses you too, and hopefully he'll get back into it. He worked, he was supposed to work, when was it?
My Yitzchak Baruch just sent me a text message. If you see Zalman Wadowski, could you get me his number?
Who is this?
This is my son, Yitzchak Baruch.
Oh, that's so funny.
That's my son who's like into the martial arts and stuff. So what's Zalman's number?
You're not going to believe this, but
No, I believe it because you have it on a speed dial, so you don't know what it is.
I will tell you in a minute, because I never have to call it.
What's that then?
It's really, I mean, I really should know it by now. And I'm too,
Yeah, I can just forward it to you.
oh, you have it on 400?
Yeah.
So what is it?
541-9400.
You got it.
What do you record?
718.
718?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
718
Yeah.
541
541
9400.
9400.
That was it.
Okay.
So he gets for working in Brooklyn.
Now he's got it.
Whatever.
Yeah.
It's not a bad place, that. Okay.
Be home at 8:35. See, this is it. If you had the share the other time, you would have made. I think is that what happened to Ruchi and her parents?
I don't know, I emailed her last week to find out because her mother got sick in Edsall, has not been back since.
Right.
Her father was here until
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, so I emailed her and asked her what's happening, but she didn't respond. She made it last week, but
Yeah, she was here last week.
Yeah.
yeah. Who was this person? Because she walked outside and get a
I
picture.
have no idea.
Oh, no, none of you know her.
I'm
Well,
assuming my leaving.
that advertisement for Rabbi Weiss was very good.
Well, Maya put together I don't know how to do it. She made a digital flyer.
It was really nice.
Yeah, the people who know how to do these things do them like they're nothing.
Yeah.
And people like me who don't know how to do these things, forget it. You bang your head against the wall for hours and you get nowhere.
Well, she had it